Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of TCG Talk, back to another video. It has been a bit, sorry I've been super busy with work, haven't had a chance to make videos, but I want to come back and have some fun relatively, and talk about some of the news that has been hitting our game in the space as a whole, right? The ascension of Aurora and the Living Legend. You know, the Living Legend system itself. We just recently had the dev talk come out yesterday at the time of recording this video. I'm going to talk about the fatigue meta, or alleged fatigue meta that we're going into potentially with Aurora, Living Legend, hitting Living Legend, and then class balancing itself. So this is going to be more of a solo podcast style. I already have a very conversational tone with my channel anyway, but this one's going to be more so, right? It's going to be me just kind of talking for however long. It shouldn't be insanely long, but a little bit longer probably than my normal videos. So sit back, relax, enjoy. Let me know what you think of the points. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all these, and we'll get right into it. So the first topic I want to talk about is the ascension of Aurora, right, to Living Legend. There's been a lot of key discussion points with this that are both positive, negative. Some people upset, some people don't really care as much, but Aurora, as most people know, is basically the path to pro hero, is what I like to call it, in Flesh and Blood, right? This is LSS's marquee hero to start the game on from the first strike decks. Then you go into the armory deck, and then eventually go into classic constructed play, and that's what it's meant for. That's obviously Aurora's intended purpose, which brings a lot of challenges for LSS. And I'm gonna be fair, and I'm gonna talk about some negative points during this video. So don't think I'm just gonna shy away from that stuff, but I am also going to try to be objective and fair when I can. This hero brings a whole set of challenges for LSS that people, I think, need to give them a little bit of grace on. Is you're making a hero that you want everyone to play. So if you want people to play this hero for this specific game, it's got to be engaging, it's got to be unique, it's got to have novelty to it, but it also has to be powerful, right? I'm just going to say it out loud, and this is a little bit of a negativity side. No one wants to play Max. There are some Max enthusiasts, Max connoisseurs out there, but from a new player perspective, it's going to be hard to sell somebody on Max because the hero is quite awful. And even though it has some cool mechanics, it's just not quite there, right? And so it's hard to sell somebody on that armory deck. Even a hero like Azalea, the ranger aspect's pretty cool, but, it's just not as grabbing as something like an Aurora is, something like a Jarl is, and talents have a lot to do with that. We'll talk about that here in a second. But so you want it to be engaging, you want it to have novelty, you want it to be powerful, and if you want it to be all those things, naturally in a cycle, it's going to hit Living Legend faster. Now, should it hit it in 6 to 7 months? No, you don't want that, but it's going to Living Legend faster. That's just a product of marketing this hero. This hero is very widely played. I heard Hayden Dale on Arsenal Pass podcast say it, and I agree with him. I'm paraphrasing. Hopefully I get it right, but he said something to the effect of if Rhinar became the most powerful deck tomorrow, it might have been Pankaj, I'm not sure. But if Rhinar became the most, not powerful, but most played deck tomorrow during RTM PQ season, it would get a good share of wins just off of sheer play rate. And I think that that's also a challenge that they have to do, that LSS has to tackle every time they print a hero like this, that they market in the way that they marketed Aurora. So hopefully they learn from that, right? That's the fair point of this whole discussion. But the kind of negative point is, they need to be careful, I guess is the best way to put it, on the timing on when they print this sealed product. Now, I think they're learning from that. One of my first things, and I have notes here on the side, so if you maybe see me go to the right, that's why I just want to make sure I don't miss anything, is I think they need to start, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but they need to start printing armory decks with the release of the heroes. I think armory decks in the first year, they were testing a bunch of different things, right? They put out a bunch of different kind of armory decks. They put out armory decks to try to support bad heroes like Bolton, like Max. They put armory decks to help support mid-range heroes that people kind of are in the middle of the pack, like Azalea. And now you're starting to see them print armory heroes that are brand new to the game. Jarl Vertrady, Gravy Bones is coming up, stuff like that. We'll talk about that here in a second. But I think they need to, from now on, only use the Armory deck with new heroes, and we'll talk about that later. The other thing that I think they could do, and this is the obvious one that people have been talking about, is and they even address this in the dev talk, is the ban hammer needs to come down a little bit more. They need to be able, I don't think they should ever be afraid of doing emergency ban. I don't think that's ever a bad thing if handled properly. The one negativity side you do have from just using the ban and restricted system a little bit more, a little bit more liberally is you start to have a mob mentality. I'm not saying LSS would give into the mob mentality, but you do start seeing, like, if the community calls for a ban every time a hero is even remotely powerful, right? Then you go into this other sentiment side of we can't just keep giving into the mob, but we've used the ban hammer arbitrarily 3 times this year already. Are we going to do it again? And then you don't want to have that perception from new players coming into the game of, the cards get banned all the time and they just keep printing powerful cards and banning them, so on and so forth. So that's a little bit hard to do. But a card like Flickerwisp should have been looked at the start of PQ season. I think Aurora still would have living legend pretty quickly. I think it would have pushed her back like a month or two. Personally, I don't think it would have hurt her too much. Maybe it would have stalled enough for us to get to high seas, and then maybe high seas would have changed things. Who knows? But they should have been more liberal on this. But that's just kind of how it is. But the other thing is, talented heroes, and as you can see Icelander here, talented heroes always sting a little bit more when they live in Legend for several reasons. Again, most talented class heroes have a little bit more novelty to them. I keep using that word. Or a little bit more, how do I explain this? Like, I guess uniqueness to them. I know it's another word for novelty. I'm trying to think of the way, but a little bit more dynamics, I guess, is the best word for it. And people naturally latch onto that. Heroes like Icelander, heroes like Lexi, even though Lexi is just stupid powerful. Heroes like Aurora, right? Heroes like Florian. These heroes that have both the talent dynamic and the class dynamic naturally have a little bit more gravitation towards them. The problem with that is when they LL, it hurts 3 times more because usually their card pulls, unless they are a generic-driven hero, are very specific. Like Lexi didn't quite hurt as bad because she did use a lot of generic arrows. But you have a hero like Icelander or a hero like Aurora who have very intrinsic cards that are both class and talent specific or talent specific. It's hard to change your class, or not your class, but it's hard to change your hero because you're not only you lined with the identities of that hero, but you're lined, with the cards. And the one thing I want to pull up here, and I'm not going to get into a price freaking video. We're not doing that today, but I will show one thing that I think is fair. The price of this game is starting to get to a breaking point, in my opinion. This is what I consider the staples, and I just did this randomly. I have two pages here. The price of staples in this game, I have staples listed, and this is, when I say staples, I mean if you're wanting to compete season to season at a minimum PQRTN level, if not Battle Hardened level. Balance of Justice, Crown of Providence, Tunic, Quick Dodge Flexors, Command and Conquer, and Lightning Strike Shelter from the Storm, which is our newest edition. These are the cards that you want to have in your binder to be able to swap to at any given moment from season to season. You just want to have them. Could you do without them? Sure. But to be at your pinnacle of competitive play, these are the ones you need to have. $1,250 is how much it would cost to get the staples, my considered staples of this game. You then have what I call tech staples. Cards like Erase Face, Weakest Link, That All You Got, Snag, and even Warmonger's Diplomacy. These cost another $670. So we're looking at, if I tell you to just buy the staples to the game, so for every deck that can use them, effectively, or the tech staples, you're looking at about $1,800. Now, that's also not counting like class-specific things. For example, any Aurora player that then wants to switch to Florian, because the talents are different, you now have to buy Felon of the Crown. You have to buy your Rootbound Carabashes, which isn't expensive but takes time. You have to buy Plow Unders, Fruits of the Forest, like all these different things, right? That make it a little bit more barrier to entry. And when you have a game that already costs a lot, and then you have talented class-based heroes that also cost a lot, it just starts to compound, right? And again, we're not going to get into a price video here, but they need to fix that. Like it's getting to the point now where it's not we're looking to address it. It's like, no, this needs to change like next year. Like, and this is again the one negativity side I'm gonna get, and I'm trying not to hound LSS because at the end of the day, like I said on Twitter, LSS on their worst day is the best TCG on the market. There's only one other TCG that I think is close, that's getting close, is Grand Archive. I think they're doing a really good job. But other than that, Flesh and Blood is the best TCG on the market. And so when I say these things, I'm not trying to hound LSS because I know their intent's good. Like, I know they love this game. I know they love trading card game community. And I know every decision they make, they don't, at least I would hope, they don't make anything nefariously. However, when you say you're going to fix, you're looking to address the problem of the game from a price standpoint, you know it's an issue and you're looking for ways to help it with reprints or with changes of things, but then you print Shelter of the Storm, like that's a problem, right? Why are we printing Shelter of the Storm if at Majestic? And then they say in the dev talk, like Brian said, like, we didn't foresee, something along the lines of like, we didn't foresee this being this big of a spike. We're looking to make a quick remedy. It's like, anyone who plays this game for longer than 15 minutes when that card came out was like, oh, that's going to be a $50 card at minimum. Like, anyway. But all that to go back to the original point of, and again, this is podcast style, so I'm going to ramble a little bit more than I normally do. Any hero that LLs quickly that's class and talent locked pretty heavily is going to sting a little bit more just because of the way the game's priced. Like, it's going to suck both from an emotional standpoint and a wallet standpoint. And coming from someone who now has basically sold down to just Assassin, and I used to have like the staples of every class, and I sold them all because like I don't want to pay $300. Like, I don't want to switch from Viserai to Florian, and because Florian's talented, now I have to pay another $500 or $300 for 3 Fellions and 3 Plows. Like, it sucks. So that's a big thing that we have to kind of consider, right? The last point I want to talk about with Aurora's Ascension, and you could talk about so many, I just picked out a couple big ones, is there was a comment in the dev talk that Brian and James were discussing about how Aurora hasn't really had a marquee win from in Tier 3 and Tier 4 events. Most of her winnings have came from Tier 1 and Tier 2. Now, the weird thing about that is, in my opinion, Tier 1 and 2 events, the focus should be more on them from a health standpoint, both from a hero power and just a meta standpoint, than even the marquee events. And some people might disagree with me on this. I don't care. It's just my opinion. I think if a hero dominates the PQ and RTN seasons, that's more impactful and potentially more detrimental than a hero that wins like back-to-back callings or, you know, several callings in a row or something like that. Because the majority of your player base is enjoying the game at that level, at the PQ and RTN level. And if they're getting stomped by a third of their field being Auroras, and like a lot of professional players I've heard on podcasts saying, like, at the PQ RTN level, and you're talking to a PQ RTN player, you know, level player, I know I'm not that great at the game, you're not always operating at 100% efficiency. And if you're not, then these decks that normally are like this power level all of a sudden go up to this power level, right? And go higher for anyone who's just listening. And so I just didn't like that comment in the fact of that shouldn't be a qualifier of this hero was only but so powerful compared to Starvo, compared to Lexi because of win conversions and top 8 conversions. No, like, the hero dominated ProQuest season. Absolutely dominated it. 30% win share. I don't care I don't care if Aurora was the 4th most converted to top 8 and had the 4th best conversion of wins. Like, to me, that's like a bullshit statistic. I'm just going to be honest with you. She won 30% of events in the first 3 weeks. She was like 29%, like 28%. That's all you need to know. Like, and is some of that from just play rate because the hero is marketed as a Path to Pro hero? Yes, 100%. But I just didn't like the comment of trying to like kind of like mask the fact that this hero was just like detrimentally dominant. I thought that was kind of like a BS way of trying to qualify the hero's power level. That's my opinion. So now we move into what can fix this living legend they talked about it. They said they want to keep Living Legend. They're trying to find ways to fix it. There was a hint of, if we can't fix it, maybe we change it and maybe we do away with it. But it seems like they're trying to fix it. Step one is like what I said earlier. I got a little bit ahead of myself, but Armory decks. Armory decks in the future should only be new heroes, either in the set itself, this releases with the hero like Gravy Bones is. It should be new heroes in general, even if it's not part of a set like Jarl Voltrady, or it should be versions 2, 3, and 4 of like new heroes. Now, the closest thing we have to that right now is Ira, even if she's not a new hero. Like if we get Briar 2 or Icelander 2 or Aurora 2, those should come out in Armory decks. Just do it that way. If you do it that way every time, you will guarantee that the sealed product will have some longevity to it. And honestly, it's not going to be any less exciting. Like it's going to be more if even, because you have this brand new hero that you get on all-in-one package thing. There's a reason that Commander decks sell every single set, right? You have new commanders, new archetypes, new everything. It's all packaged in one big, easy-to-play box. Like, why are we not doing that? That's step one for me. The next one that I saw a couple people in the Purple Discord talking about is putting a point cap on on PQ and RTN seasons. I don't like this just because of power abuse. Like, let's just say, for argument's sake, that it's still 1,500 points for PQ season. And let's say that they make some rule that says a hero can't receive more than 300 points every RTN season. I don't like that, because that means, let's just say we get another Starvo situation that's just like utterly dominant. Hopefully to God we don't. But let's say we do. And this hero wins 50% of PQs and only gets 300 points. So it's going to absolutely degen the meta, but nothing to really show for it. Then you're going to have people, you're going to have LSS like put the ban hammer like a mofo on this thing. And now you just basically ruined all of RTN season. The hero got gutted, so the people who play it like feel bad, and it didn't really get any closer to Living Legend. I don't like that because of the power abuse. Now, is that worst case scenario? 100%. But I do think that's just that there's too many holes in that system. The holes in that system that could be drastic are too bad to allow that to be a thing. The next thing for Living Legend, just fix the price of the game. We talked about this. Again, I got ahead of myself on several points, but if we are going to say on a dev talk, and this was a couple dev talks ago, and I know that, they're ahead in their dev cycles, so like I'm trying to give some grace here, but we're going to say like we're trying to address the price of the game, but then we print a majestic level 0 for 4 with an additional ability that everyone who plays this game for longer than 15 minutes knows is going to be at minimum in the best market possible, $35 to $40 a card. At worst, what it is right now, $100 a card. Like, that doesn't line up. Why? And then in the dev talk we say that, and again, I'm being harsh, but I'm being real here. We say that we didn't expect it to be this way. No, any player who plays this game knew this card was going to be $50+. Like, and that's just the thing. And Shelter is the most egregious, right? Is the most egregious example for sure. But the price of the game needs to change a little bit. If you are going to continue to print talented heroes that also have, class and talent identities, you're going to have to somehow fix the price of the game. Am I saying every card should be $1 or $5 or like no more than 10? No, I'm not saying that. I want cards that have value. But to go from Lightning Runeblade to Earth Runeblade, I now have to spend $300+, right? I mean, if we even just, and I'm going to do this on the fly because it is a podcast, it's a little bit easier to do. But I'm going to pull up just a random Florian deck as I'm sitting here talking. And, like, we have to, like, think about the fact that, like, if I switch, so you should already have Dyadic Carapace, and this is just one class example. You should already have Face Purgatory, Grasp of the Arknight, all that stuff, right? The thing you're going to have to buy, likely Quick Dodge Flexors. You can just use Well Grounded if you want, but you have to buy that. We have to buy a Channel of the Millennium Tree because it's Earth and it's a key part of this deck. Channel of the Millennium Tree, you're looking at $33 for a playset. You then have to buy Felling of the Crowns, $215 for a playset. If you want to play a better version of Florian, Shelter of the Storm, which is already a staple, we won't even count that. Plow Unders, $120 for a playset. Canopy Shelters, because of the fact of where they were printed and the Terra First Strike deck, you're looking at $25 for 3 of them. And Truce, which is a generic, so we won't count that. So just for the talent-specific cards, you're looking at $120, $145 plus Felling of the Crown. You're looking at about $355 plus Channel Millennium Tree, $390. About $390 to buy what you need to buy. And then if you buy Bar Skin and you're not running Tunic, you're now looking at over $400. So for me to go from Aurora to Florian, which is in the same class but not in the same talent, I have to pay $400 to make that switch at a minimum. I'm not counting if you have to buy Shelter of the Storms if you don't have the staple already. I'm not counting if you have to buy generic cards like Truce, buying cards like Weakest Link as a sideboard card. It's a little bit easier to play than Florian. If you don't own Swarming Gloom Bells yet, that's $53, like little stuff, right? And again, this is one instance, but this is pretty common from like one talent to another. If you already have all the staples in the game and you make a class or talent switch, you're generally paying $300 to $500 to do that. That needs to be fixed, like in some way, shape. That should only be like $100, $200 at most. When you see other top TCGs in the market, kind of in your like Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon are in their own stratosphere. We are not even close to them yet. I don't care what anybody says. I say like I'm a part of LSS's. Their competition is like One Piece, Grand Archive, in my opinion. These middle level TCGs that are doing really well. When you see those games and their whole entire decks for top winning lists cost like $300 at most, like we gotta somehow fix that. They're eventually going to pass you because of price and because of availability and because of flexibility and player choice. Like it's just gonna happen. That's just my opinion. Yes, is Flesh and Blood the most competitive of the three and the most balanced from point to point? 100%, but that only gets you so far, in my opinion. So the price of the game needs to change. Staples, tech cards need to get better. With Felling of the Crowns costs $215 for a play set. Shelter of the Storm costs $300 for the play set. And the problem is, like we said, if you make things more synergistic, that gives more dynamics to those heroes and makes them more captivating because they have these marquee, powerful cards. But it also makes things just as expensive, right? And this is the one benefit now I'm trying to give LSS on this. It's very hard. It's very difficult. If you try to print more generic so people can just buy staples, well, then you water down the game because, if everyone's playing 3 Enlightened Strikes, Quick Dodge, Balance, Tunic, and, Snag in their deck, I'm saying a Ram card, and Weakest Link, like if 80% of the decks have all those in the main board, then you kind of like lose some fun into the game. But also, if you make things too synergistic, Felling of the Crown, Gone to Flash, things like that, you also have some pricing concerns. So it's hard. And I'm not saying I know the solution. I usually try to have a solution when it comes to problems. I don't know how they fix this. I do think they could reprint a little bit better. They really never reprint. And when they do, it's either really, 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 really low-cost cards that no one cares to reprint because it's just a promo that's fun to have, or it's like Marvel and Legendary CNC, which I don't even count as a reprint. It doesn't lower the price of the card at all. That's just my opinion. But that's it. Moving on from Aurora, we're going to talk about the fatigue meta. I'm not going to go too long into this. I'm not a fatigue player. I don't like fatigue gameplay. I don't like fatigue. I think it's slow. I think it's boring, personally. Going to second and third cycle and having a mid-range battle, 100%. Sitting there and dirtily turtling up and saying, all right, I win unless you can push but so much damage or so many action points. I hate that. That's shit gameplay, in my opinion. However, regardless of my personal feelings, this one's more objective in the fact of the game's going to ebb and flow. We've had very fast metas. We've had very slow metas. It's just going to happen, and I think people need to understand that. And if it's not your style of the game and you want to take a break until the meta shifts, feel free to. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I do think that one thing could help is we could get some more Kano-like combo decks. Not maybe like as not your turn, our turn decks like Kano. But I think we should get more combo decks in the game. We don't really have them. I think it's just the way the game's set up with the 4-card hands and the way the resource system works. It's kind of hard to do that. Harder, at least. But, we have these decks like Verdance that can do the rampant growth and life combos. You have Kano. You have these, like, really big stuff. And being able to do things like that, I think, is important. I hope they continue to try to look for ways to build these combo decks because I think it's really important. But that's basically it for the fatigue meta thing. If it's not your cup of tea, it's not your cup of tea. That's fine. It's not mine. I'm not having as much fun now. I'd rather play Aurora than Scepter Florian. I'll tell you that any day of the week, no matter what deck I'm playing. So that's just how it is. But then we come to the last topic, which kind of goes with the fatigue meta, which is class balancing. I think it's going to be – some people are upset. I use upset as a general term. Some people have pointed out that, like, I saw a post on Twitter, I forgot who it was from, where, like, they were showing, like, the points distribution for LL per class. And Runeblade and Illusius are obviously just absolutely destroying that number. Whereas classes like Mech and Brute suck in terms of amount of living legend points. It's just awful. Certain class mechanics, I think, are always just going to be more, until they shift things, which they're working to, and we'll talk about that here in a second, they're just going to be more powerful. Split damage heroes are always going to be more powerful. It's just how it is. It's the way the resource system works. It's the way the game works with the amount of cards we have in our hand. Anybody that can run split damage is always going to have a decent base. It's just how it is. Decks that can have board state or instant speed stuff. Now, OG Prism had Spectra, but even like taking Spectra out of the equation, anything that allows you to play instant speed things and have board state in a game where you only have 4 cards at a time is going to be very good, especially after they banned all the books, even though the books did hurt Prism too. Especially after they banned all the books, like, it's just how it is, right? Whereas heroes like, heroes like Mechanologist that only have boost, or Brute that only have, 6 power intimidate stuff, or like that kind of thing. Like, Rhinar is different. If Rhinar was ever the best hero in the game, you want to talk about people getting pissed off. People would hate that. That would be awful. Imagine me dealing 20 damage to you multiple times, several turns in a row, and you literally cannot block. That would suck. Anyway, there's certain classes, I think, that their base level mechanics just aren't very flexible and aren't very as powerful. And in order to make them powerful, you basically have to break the game. Mechanics like Boost, mechanics like Intimidate, and you can see them trying to change that. KO was a move on of trying to make Brute more consistent without breaking it. Now you're going to see Mechanologists go into more of a crank style mechanic instead of Boost, trying to, manipulate it that way. They're working to do better, but I think people you need to understand, like, there's certain classes that unless they break whatever you're trying to do, it's going to always naturally be worse. Like, Ranger's a perfect example of that. Lexi kind of broke it because of Voltaire and talents on it, obviously, but Ranger naturally operates at a disadvantage. You are paying 1 resource more for everything you do, attack-wise, for the most part. Granted, most of your attacks have better on-hits than most every class, and it's just as disruptive, like near assassin level, but you naturally operate at a disadvantage. If you're playing Mechanologist, you naturally operate in a very confined space within Boost, unless you're playing Dash.io. So, whereas Viserai can run attacks and non-attack actions and has split damage and all this other stuff, right? Prism has a lot of flexibility in what you can do, even though it's an extremely difficult deck to play. Like, the natural-based mechanics just make it better. But one thing that could fix this is equipment diversity, I think. But the problem is, if you make equipment too answer-driven, then you start to have a stale format. So I think people need to be okay with, like, sometimes you just don't have everything. I do think that Runeblade's really funny because thematically it makes sense that a sword-wielding arcane user would have a lot of equipment tools at their disposal because they're really powerful beings. Like, I get that. But the fact that Aurora had, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 armor, 8, 9 if you're running Carapace, it's pretty nuts. So we'll have to see with the class balancing. I really don't have, like, a stagnant last point on that. It's just more of, like, explaining, like, I think people need to realize that some classes naturally operate at more of a disadvantage than others because of their core level mechanic and how that core level mechanic exists and operates in the game. Yeah, that's just my random thoughts. Again, this is just more of a rambly podcast style. I want to kind of get on here and talk about things, try to give some constructive thoughts without being too like negative or too positive, right? Or just being like blind to things. So let me know what your thoughts are. If you like this type of content, like I always say it's at the end of my videos, but this one I actually like, I mean, I always mean it, but this one I actually like. If you like this style of me just rambling for 30 minutes, let me know. If you think I went too off the rails and I was talking about just aimless crap, also let me know. It's totally fine. If you made it to the end of the video, you're awesome. But yeah, that's my general thoughts on some of this stuff. I'm excited for High Seas. So I didn't get a spoiler, which is completely fine. So I will be doing spoiler reviews of all the amazing creators that are getting spoilers. People are getting some sick stuff. Super excited to watch that. I'll be doing a review on the Gravy Bones Armory deck. I'm getting that as well. I'm super excited about Necromancer. I can't wait for that, honestly. But yeah, if you like this type of content, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you want me to be doing here in the future. I'll try to give you as much good content as I can. Work's been insanely busy. I've been working 50, 60-hour weeks, which isn't like, you know, I have a little free time, but I've been trying to spend that free time with Reagan. We've been going out and doing stuff, so apologies for the lack of videos, but, you know, life moves on sometimes. But thank y'all so much. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Stay safe, and I'll see y'all next time on TC Talk.